Fluid power system, module 4, pneumatic control system. In that one we are going to take the actuator parts. This PPT has been prepared by referring many sources which include figures, diagram from internet as well as from prescribed textbooks and reference books. I do not claim any originality in preparing this video or PPT. This PPT or video is exclusively for the purpose of education and not for any financial gains. I wholeheartedly thank all those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this PPT and video. Thank you. The same syllabus in that one, introduction to pneumatic system, we have covered in last video. In this video we are covering the pneumatic actuators. So pneumatic actuator. Pneumatic actuators are the devices used for converting pressure energy of compressed air into mechanical energy to perform useful work. The actuators are used to perform the task of exerting the required force at the end of the stroke, or used to create displacement by the movement of the piston. The pressurized air from compressed air is supplied to reservoir. Then the pressurized air from the storage is supplied to pneumatic actuator to do work. The air cylinder is simple and efficient device for providing linear thrust or straight line motions with a rapid speed of response. The cylinders are particularly suitable for single purpose applications and or where rapid movement is required. See, when you have a rapid movement, the pneumatic system will use. If you require a slow movement, then hydraulic system are going to be used with a more load. The chief limitation is that the electric nature of the compressed air makes them unsuitable for powering movement where absolutely steady forces or motions are required. The applied against a fluctuation load or where extreme accuracy of fed is necessary. The air cylinder is also inherently limited in thrust output by a relatively low supply pressure so that the production of high output forces can only be achieved by large size of the cylinder. There is a types of pneumatic actuator. The pneumatic cylinder can be used to get linear, rotary and oscillator motion. There are three types of pneumatic actuators. They are linear actuator with the pneumatic cylinder, rotary actuator with air motor, then limited angle actuators. When you say, if you classify that one more, when it's a pneumatic cylinder with linear actuator is, pneumatic cylinders are devices for converting air pressure into linear mechanical force and motion. The pneumatic cylinder are basically used for single purpose applications such as clamping, stamping, transferring, benching, allocating, ejecting, metering, tilting, bending, turning and many other applications in the industries. The different classification scheme of the pneumatic cylinders are based on the application of for which air cylinder is used depending on the application, and based on the cylinder actions, then based on the cylinder movement, then based on the cylinder design itself. On this one, let's see the classifications. Based on the application for which air cylinders are used, we will see the different application with the light duty air cylinder, medium duty air cylinders and heavy duty air cylinders. These things will help the uh, designer to choose depending on their requirement. Then based on the cylinder action, single acting cylinder, double acting cylinder. Then in the double acting cylinder again we have a single rod type double acting cylinder and a double rod type double acting cylinder. Next, based on the cylinder movement, a rotary type of cylinder, then non-rotary type of air cylinder. The cylinder rod will not going to be rotate in the non-rotary type. In the rotary type, cylinder can inside the cylinder the piston can able to rotate. Based on the cylinder design, telescopic cylinder, tandem cylinder, rodless cylinder without rod. Then when it's a rodless cylinder, there again we will classify as a cable cylinder, sealing band cylinder with a slotted cylinder barrel, and cylinder with a magnetically coupled slides. These three are the rodless cylinders. Then impact cylinder for impact load, then a duplex cylinder, then cylinder with the sensor. This one is the last one, cylinder with the sensors. Like this we have a classifications. Linear actuators. Linear actuators or pneumatic cylinders are the devices used for converting air pressure into linear mechanical force and motion. Pneumatic cylinders are basically used for single purpose applications such as clamping, stamping, transferring or allocating or rejecting the component from the conveyor or metering in meter out nothing but slow downing or slow tilting, bending the component or to rotate the component. We have the different application. As I said earlier, the types of linear actuator are single acting, double acting in the rodless. First we'll see the single acting cylinder. Single acting cylinder has one working port. The forward motion of the piston is obtained by supplying compressed air to the working port. The return motion of the piston obtained by a spring placed on the rod side of the cylinder. Normally, see this end we'll call the cylinder will called as a rod and cylinder rod side, and this side we'll always call it the piston side. So it has a one pressure port and one vent port. Means instead of blocking the vacuum, there is a small vent that give the atmospheric air will get in and it will go out automatically, right? How when it will get in, when the spring is pushing back the piston to return, that time the air will get in and air pressure also act on the cylinder, right? When we require the pressure force or when the actual working stroke, that will be the forward stroke in this particular single acting cylinder, because rod is spring is at the rod end. See, from the pressure port, we will supply the pressurized air. That pressurized air will push this piston, right, against the spring force. At the end of the rod, used for a required application of a work. Using this rod end, he will push the load or push the component from the conveyor or pushing the car, lift the component, any kind of application. Depending on that one, depending on the how much output force you required, depending on that one, you need to design the diameter of this piston and the air pressure. The product of these things will get the force. So for that reason you should calculate how much is the pressure you should act and what is the piston diameter. Depending on that one, how much force you require. This is your actual single acting cylinder working principle. Next, in the single acting cylinder we have a classifications like a spring return, gravity return and diaphragm return. See, this one is the gravity return. There is no spring on any side, right? So automatically somebody has to push from the return stroke also, right? Here you tell the spring return. So when you have a gravity return, so it will use for a lift the load. Due to the load itself, it will retract, right? These are the three types, and one more is the diaphragm is like this. This kind of diaphragm cylinders nowadays you can see in the what do you call the wheel alignment center. In the car wheel alignment center, they are using the diaphragm kind of cylinder, so that they will use the compressed air to actually lift the vehicle. Instead of earlier they used to hydraulic jack, right? Instead of the hydraulic jack, nowadays you may see the diaphragm cylinder. Like we will also call this one as a bellows type of cylinder. Here we'll have one side spring, one side they will use the air pressure. How much it can able to expand, only the diaphragm movement it can able to give, only that is the stroke. These are all used for the very less stroke application. Next we'll have a double acting cylinder. In the double acting cylinder, as the double acting, its name it says, it will give the force in both the stroke. Even in the forward stroke also you will get the force, in the retract also you will get the force, but the retraction force will be less because you are applying a air on lesser area, because the rod area you need to subtract from the piston, so you are applying the load only to this much area, so that the retract force will be less compared to forward stroke force, nothing but output force. Here we have a two ports, one is at the piston end, one is at the rod end. When you require a forward stroke, you need to supply the air pressure to the piston end, so that the air pressure will push to the piston, piston will move against the force or against the load. So it will, the rod will use to push the load or lift the load application. In the same way, if you wanted to retract that one, you need to cut off the supply from the piston end, you need to supply the pressurized air to rod end, so that it will push it back. This is the working principle how the double acting cylinder will work. Rodless cylinders. Rodless cylinders are those cylinders having piston without piston rods. Right? Rodless cylinders having piston without piston rods. A rodless cylinder consists of a cylindrical tube with a piston head housed inside. Nothing but a rod cylinder consists of a cylinder tube with a piston head housed inside. The piston moves to and fro inside the cylinder due to the compressed air. Like one side you need to supply. If you say front side, you can say left side. If you supply the air supply, the piston will move forward towards the right side. If you supply the air at the right side, then the piston will move towards the left side due to by the compressed air. These rodlet cylinders are best suited where space is limited to accommodate the piston rod during extension stroke. Normally, if you use the rod cylinder, you need to give a more space to uh, accommodate that cylinder. Right? If you have a, if it doesn't have a rod, then it required a less space compared to piston or rod type of cylinder. For that reason only, where we have a space restriction, in that condition they will go for an rodless cylinders applications. Classification of rodless cylinders. The first one is cable operated rod cylinder. Second one is magnetic type of rod cylinder. Third one is a sealing band cylinder with slotted cylinder barrel. These are all the three major types of rodless cylinders normally used in the industries. Cable operated rod cylinder. This consists of cylinder and piston head. On either side of the piston heads are fastened a cable which passes around pulley mounted on ends of the cylinder. Right? When a piston moves to and fro due to the compressed air supply, the cable also moves. Such type of cylinder used for motion rather than the torque. So in the, what do you call, the rodless cylinders are mostly used for motion, not with respect to the torque. Here, as we said, if air supplied to the cylinder, right? Cylinder where piston is connected with the, both the ends are connected with the cable. Depending on which side you are going to supply the air to the cylinder, right? The piston will move to the opposite to that one. When it moves, it will pull the cable. So the both the cable, above the cable, the load or application are going to be used to get the required actuation. Next one, magnetic type rodless cylinder. Figure shows the magnetic piston cylinder. The piston has a powerful magnet that bonds the piston inside the cylinder with a carriage outside. Very important is the piston inside and the cylinder with the carriage outside, which also contain a powerful magnet. The magnetic cylinders are available up to the size about 40 mm diameter and stroke length from 50 mm to 4000 mm. They can operate at a speed of 3000 millimeter per second. Here there is no physical contact between the piston and the load carriage. Right? Only these two are the powerful magnets. These two attracted each other with respect to the magnetic frequency. When the air supply to the piston magnet which is inside the cylinder to one side, the cylinder, the piston, that piston will move to other end. Nothing but if we say, if we supply the air to compressed air to left side of the magnetic piston, then piston start move towards the right side. At the same time, the carriage which is above the cylinder, which is attracted with the piston magnet, that will also move along with the piston. Above the carriage, the load are going to be used to move actuation or to get the required actuation from the magnetic type of rodless cylinder. Advantages of magnetic type rodless cylinder. There is no leakage. The first one is there is no leakage, right? Because the what do you call? What do you the ports which are connected into the air will not going to be leakage from left ends to right end or from rod end to piston or piston end to rod end. There is no direct contact of moving elements, therefore the wear is very less. The orientation of the carriage can be changed easily depending on the application. Next, rotary actuators or air motor. The rotary actuators will also called as air motors. The function of air motor is to convert the pressure energy of the compressed air into a rotational mechanical motion. See, normally when you say linear actuators are convert the pressure energy or compressed air, pressure energy of the compressed air into the to and from motion, right? The mechanical rotary to and from motion. But when the air motors will convert the pressure energy of the compressed air into a rotational mechanical motion, like hydraulic motor. The air motor can also be classified on the basis of the construction elements, like what you see in the hydraulic system, the gear motor, vane motor, piston motor and the piston and turbine motor. Here also you can see the gear motor, vane motor, piston and the turbine motor, but these are all work under the compressed air. The construction of the operation of the gear, vane, piston, air motors are similar to the hydraulic motors. The turbine air motors are not going to be used in hydraulic system, right? Only the gear, vane and piston air motors are used. But the construction wise, both are similar with respect to the hydraulic motors and the pneumatic air motors, but only the difference is the working media. There we have a pressurized hydraulic fluid, nothing but a hydraulic liquid, but here with the compressed air. Turbine air motors. These turbine air motors are working on the same principle how the your normally the power generation turbines will work, right? There what we'll do, we'll supply the high speed water to tends to what high pressure water will hit the vanes of the turbine so that the turbine blades will going to be rotate. But in this case we are going to supply the high pressure air to rotate the blades of the turbines. This high speed motor generate a small torque. In fact, when stalled, the torque is practically negligible. The speed are limited to between 50,000 to 80,000 RPM. Next one. Yeah, along with the rotary actuators, in the pneumatic system we have limited angle rotary actuator also. The rotary actuators are used to achieve angular motion. The rotary actuator devices that produce high torque output and have a limited rotary movement. The standard rotations are 90 degree, 180 degree and 270 degree. These are all the standard angles it can able to rotate. To achieve these kind of, they have a three majorly available types of rotary actuators are vane type, limited rotary motor and rotary actuator of rack and pinion type and helix spine rotary actuators. Next, vane type limited rotation motors. There are two types, single vane limited rotation motor and double vane limited rotation motor. Here, the construction wise is almost similar to the vane pump. Only is there is a single vane. In a single vane pump, we have a motor. We have a single vane connected to that one. You have an output shaft. The output shaft is used to get the output rotation. Right, when the vane is connected, vane will have both side, we have a two ports, right? One side if you supply the compressed air so that the vane can able to rotate in a limited angle. So when you say it's keep on rotating, it will go up to maximum 270 degree. As they said, it is used only for the limited angle. If you want so it can go with the clockwise direction rotation and it has to come back return. Right, when to return we need to supply the other end of the vane, right? We need to supply the compressed air. Here you can say it is a imbalanced type because only one side vane is actually getting a more load, so the shaft or the what do you call, the rotating components, nothing but a bearing which is connected to the vane and the shaft, there will have a one side loading will going to be takes place. Due to that, the bearing life will going to be keep on reduced. To avoid that one, they use the double vane limited rotation motor. In the double vane limited rotation vane, we have a instead of a, like it is like a balanced one. So you have seen the vane pump and the balanced vane pump. Here also to get the balanced, we have a balanced. This vane motor is a balanced vane motor. Here when you supply the air supply, so it is a two input ports and two output ports opposite to each other. If we supply the air to one input port, it will connect it to the other end also. So both vane will have applied the load at a time, so that it will like a, it can able to easily rotate without any load condition. So it is used to these kind of vane pumps are used to like a double acting operation, used to get a maximum angle rotation up to 270 degree. These are generally used to actuate dampers in robotics and material handling application. These are all work like a dampers in robotics and the material handling applications. Next we'll have the rotary actuator like a rack and pinion type. See here there is a, it consists of a two back to back cylinder, right? Two cylinders back to back each other with a common piston rod. These two pistons are connected with a common piston rod. The piston rod is provided with a rack. The piston rod is engaging with a rack with a pinion mounted on transversely in the center, so the pinion will be the output and the rack will be the input. As I said, there is a two pistons are connected with a rack. So when you supply the air, compressed air supply to the left, according to the, see the sketch, to the left piston, so what will happen, the piston will try to move towards the right. While moving, the rack which is engaged with the pinion, that will, the rack will tends to pinion to rotate. Like as well as this one is also depending on the rack length, the angle of the rotation is going to be limited. Very important, angle of the rotation is very limited. So the linear movement of the piston is translated into a limited rotary motion. The rotary movement usually limited to a maximum of up to 300 degree or less. The next one is helix spline rotary actuator. Here we'll have a piston like a non-rotating type of piston which is connected with a hollow rod. Like this is we can give an example for this one as a ball screw mechanism. Right, what we'll have, and the output shaft we have a linear shaft which is above that one there is a the spiral, what do you call, the threads are uh, formed on the output shaft. What will happen if the air supply to the cylinder, the non-rotating type of piston which is connected with the hollow rod, that piston will try to move left or right. While moving, it will tends to rotate the output shaft. So automatically when the shaft rotates, so depending on the movement length, the shaft will rotate. For the best example for this one is for the assumption, you can use the nut and bolt system. Right, you can say nut is a bolt is the stationary and it will give the rotary movement, and the nut is the moving element. Nut will move. If you rotate in a clockwise direction, it will move one direction. If you rotate in anti-clockwise direction, it will move towards the one direction. This movement will going to be takes place by air supply. Instead of a rotation of the nut, there will have compressed air will be supplied so that the piston will push. While pushing itself, the hollow rod will rotate because it is engaging with the spiral shaft. So the spiral shaft will rotate, the output will get from the spiral shaft. Next we'll have the cylinder mountings. The way in which the cylinder is mounted influences the service life, maintenance, frequency and success of the entire installation. Very important is, if you require a successful installation, then you need to properly mount the cylinder. The poor mounting design can cause the excessive side load and stresses that will be bring about the early failure of some vital components. There are three main categories of cylinder mountings: fixed centerline mountings, pivoted centerline mountings and fixed non-centerline mountings. The mountings are almost similar to the hydraulic and pneumatic cylinders. So you can see the sketches. So in this one, the first we will take the fixed centerline mountings. In this mounting, the cylinder is supported along its center line. Cylinder is supported along its center line. The mounting bolts are thus subjected to shear or simple stress. The mounting bolts are subjected to a shear or simple stress. This mounting needs accurate alignment. Misalignment is not tolerable. Say those kind of for these kind of fixed centerline mounting, these are all the example. You can say blind end flange at the back side of the cylinder. We can use the flange, or the front in front of the cylinder near the rod. You can, that will call as a front end. There also you can use the flange, or centerline lugs, like a legs they will use in the center line, both the side in front and back, both the side you can use the legs, or tie rod mountings. Along with this cylinder, there are additional tie rod are going to be used. Along with the tie rod, the back end will be used as a mounting. These are the example for fixed centerline mountings. The next one is pivoted centerline mountings. In the pivoted centerline mountings, the examples are, you can see the front end trunnion. In the front end will be used as a pivoted point so that it can able to oscillate, or you can say the back end trunnion. In the back end of the back side of the cylinder is going to be pivoted so that the entire cylinder can be what do you call move up and down like in angular movement. And the next one is in the clevis. Instead of the pivoted, they can use the clevis to get the more angle of rotation. Next we'll have the central trunnion. In the center also you can use, in the center, exactly center of the cylinder, use the trunnion kind of clevis mounting, right, or pivoted mountings. The pivoted centerline mountings are many applications need a rotational degree of freedom for a cylinder as it reciprocate. While it's reciprocating, it requires a rotation movement also. The pivoted mounting can be cleavage type of or trunnion type. This mounting permits rotational freedom in one plane. If universal joint is used, the greater degrees of freedoms are possible. If you use the universal joints, the greater degrees of freedom can be achievable. Next one is the fixed non-centerline mounting. For this examples are say end lug mounting, side lug or integral key mounting and the flush mounting. The fixed non-centerline mountings are the cylinders are introduced to torque under load condition where we have a more torque under a load condition, that time they can go for a fixed centerline mounting. The cylinder may rotate or bend about its mounting bolt when loaded. This stress level on the cylinder is higher as compared to the centerline mounting. Cylinder seals. Seals are used in cylinder to prevent the losses caused by leakage and to make the effective use of the compressed air energy as a medium. So here very important characteristics of these seals are long life, low friction, resistance of heat, high range of working pressure, high range of temperature and mechanical strength. The seal which is used that should give a good long life so that the cylinder will used for a long time. Otherwise you need to go for frequent uh, seal replacement on the low friction. It should not create the more friction, because if you create the frictions the heat will generate, that will heat will cause the seal to fail faster rate. Next we have the resistance of heat. Due to the friction, the heat may generate. If the seal can able to resistance to heat, so the life can be more. If they could not able to resist the more heat, so due to the heat, the properties of seal will change. Due to this one, the seal will fail faster in application. Then high range of working pressure. It should able to withstand with the high pressure, especially when you say piston seals. The piston seals should able to withstand high pressure range, because when the load is applied on the cylinder, due to the load, the back load may be applied on the cylinder seals. It could able to withstand that particular load. Next, high range of temperature. So it can able to withstand with the high temperature, because we could not able to decide whether the cylinder are used in a AC room or in a required temperature. Sometime it will go with the high temperature also. It should able to withstand that particular temperature, right? Even when is while selecting the cylinder itself for application, they will mention what is the temperature up to which it can able to withstand. So depending on the seals, they decided the temperature, so that we should choose the cylinder with respect to different application with respect to the by checking the temperature also. Then the mechanical strength. So how much strength it has, because frequently using for under the friction area, right, under the more pressure, under the more temperature, whether it can able to give a more strength, that will be come under the last like what you call characteristics of a seal. Then a classification of seals. Here when it's a classification, we have a different with respect to the application. One is a static seal and the dynamic seal. The static seal are used to provide a sealing between the stationary parts of the cylinder. Example, end cap or barrel and the cylinder, right? Where we use the seals which are of the static condition. There is no moving components in between. And here o-ring is most commonly used for static seal. These are all only used for to avoid the leakage or to stop the leakage. These kind of seals are used. When it's a dynamic seal, are used for surfaces that are moving components. We can say cup seal and Z seals are commonly used in a moving component. The best example for this one is your piston. Above the piston, two seals are going to be used, where cup seal and Z seals are used, because the piston, along with the piston, the seal is also need to move while along with the rubbing the barrel of the cylinder, so that the dynamic seals we need to choose very carefully. When you say double acting cylinders use at least 5 types of cylinder. When you say double acting cylinder, which are going to be used 5 different types of seals. One is cushion seals for to give the cushioning effect to the piston. Wear seals are used above the piston, right, or at the rod, because rod will come out from the cylinder and it will get into the cylinder. So where will have the wear seal, then the piston seal where the seals are mounted above the piston, then the barrel seals. The barrel seals are going to be used in between the barrel and the end caps to clamp. Next we'll have the piston rod and wiper seals. The piston rod we have one seal and the wiper seal is exactly there. It is what do you call open to the atmosphere, because it is the end seal which is have a contact with the environment. So it's the last seal because it will should avoid the dust to get into the system. So that will called as an wiper seals. Next we'll have a end cushioning in pneumatic cylinder. The end cushioning is required to avoid the inertia force. When the cylinder move forward direction, it should not stop immediately. Because if you hit two hard components hit each other, what will happen? Automatically the mating component will going to be differs depending on the inertia. The best example is if you strike a pawn on a carom, faster what will happen? It will hit the pawn and both will repel each other. To avoid that one, they will use the seals to avoid the repelling of the piston back. So both the end, in the cap end and the rod end, both the end, the seals are going to be used, so that when you reach the end of the stroke, automatically the speed should reduce and it should not give the inertia force should not going to be act at end of the rod. Because if you wanted to use the cylinder to push the component, you should not push at the faster rate when after sealing in the cylinder also. So when if you have a smooth movement of the pushing option, after the reach the end position, it should stop smoothly. To avoid the inertia force, they will use the seals. These seals are normally used in cap end and the rod end. Nothing but the both the end of the piston. When you reach the end position, when it's a forward stroke, right, near the cap end there is a seals for the forward stroke, and the retract stroke will near the back end, or it's a cylinder cap end they use the seals. Next we'll have the graphical symbols for a pneumatic cylinders, because in the industries all the circuit diagrams and the designs are going to be happen using the symbols only. They will not draw the real cylinder sketch. They simply draw the symbols of all pneumatic components. So that is the easy to identify. By seeing the symbol itself, the is able to define or said which type of cylinder they used. So first graphical symbol you can see there is only one input. It indicates it is a single acting cylinder, but the return is not specified. The return is not specified. The return may be takes place due to the load itself. In the second one, it has only one input, and near the rod there is a spring shown. So it is indicates the single acting cylinder with the spring return. Then next we'll have a two inputs, or you can the two dot lines, or you can see one is at the piston and one is at near the rod. That will indicates the double acting cylinder. Next we'll have the rod, the full length of rod on the both the side. This will called as a double acting cylinder with a double piston rod. So both the side will have the piston rod. Nothing but you can take the application wise, the both side of the rod used for the application for the what do you call to and from motion. Instead of giving a one side, both the end can be connected. Next we'll have the telescopic cylinder with a single input, so it is called as a single acting. Again here also the return is unspecified. The return is going to be due to takes by load itself. Next we'll have the double acting telescopic type of cylinder. Next we'll have the, you can see the above the piston there is a small rectangle that will indicate the cushion, fixed cushion. right? Here you can see single acting cylinder with the fixed cushion at the piston end, and the return is not specified. The next one, you have a double acting cylinder. Both the side you can see the rectangle above the piston. Both the side you can see the above the piston, that will indicates the double acting cylinder with the double fixed cushioning on both sides. Fixed cushioning above the cushioning, if you see the arrow mark, that will indicates the cushion can be adjustable. The cushion can be adjustable. We also called as a variable cushion. Double acting cylinder with the variable cushion at one end. If you have a, both the side have a cushioning symbol of the rectangle and an arrow mark, then we can say double acting cylinder with a variable cushion on both sides. So thank you to watching my videos with respect to the DCET. All the best for your CET exam. For any information or any clarification, you can contact me in the number 9900092934, or you can mail me in above mail ID sandeepmysore07@gmail.com. Once again, thank you and all the best for your CET exam.